Nerd Night, Lustron, America's heavy metal housing.
What's up, everybody? Hi. Nerds, nerdettes, fellow introverts all. So my name is John Heider. 5 years ago, I purchased a Lustron home in this town. I knew next to nothing about it, other than it was all metal. The reason I bought it was because I could afford it. And I learned more about it as I went along. I'm gonna pass this around. This is part of my house. So you can't take it home or my home's gonna collapse. But this is the material my home is made of. It's porcelain enamel metal. So this is the same stuff that's on your washing machine and your stovetop. My home is made of this stuff. This is on the exterior walls. It's on the ceilings. It's on the interior walls, and it's even on the roof. So pass it around. Use it as a beer cozy. So these are the Lustrons, post-World War II housing, built to last. So here's the guy. Here's the idea. As World War II came to an end, this guy named Carl Strandland had an idea. It was to create these mass-produced, mostly prefabricated homes for the post-World War II market. And he wanted to be able to put them all in one big-ass truckload and take them, he wanted them to last a long, long time, require relatively upkeep, and be relatively affordable. Okay, so I have to read this part too, because it's too many words for me to remember. Okay, so Lustrons are an American series of two-bedroom, all-steel homes. All the walls, as I've already said, ceiling, roof tile surfaces were coated in an enameled steel porcelain finish. The homes had all these all-metal built-ins, like closets, vanities, drawers, and storage lockers. They were designed by the guy named Carl Strandland. For the post-World War II market, they were semi-pre-assembled in a factory in Columbus, Ohio, and they were loaded into one truck and delivered to sites east of the Rockies for the surging needs in housing. And only 2,498 of them were built by 1950 when the Lustron Corporation went out of business. Okay, but before we begin, here's a quick invitation. This Sunday, I'm having an open house at my Lustron here in town. It's July 22nd from 11 to 1. I'm at 1711 Chandler Road in Ann Arbor. Stop by. I'm not gonna have any beverages or refreshments for you motherfuckers. Just show up. You can take a screenshot of this screenshot if you want. You have your phones out? You want to take it? Or just come up to me later and ask, where the hell's your home? And as I mentioned, there's gonna be complimentary valet car totally. All right, so what's the Lustron's genesis? So Carl Strandland, that lovely guy we saw a moment ago, he had been involved in something called the Chicago Vitreous and Enamel Corporation that in the 1930s was making these Standard Oil metal gas stations all over the country. Now the gas stations were not all metal, both inside and out, but the exteriors had those square panels because they lasted forever. So here is, and you can find examples around the country if you look. They're still around. They're not always still used for gas stations. I found this one in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's now a restaurant, even though it still says the Whiting Oil Company. Here's one in Northville. This is another example of the Standard Oil gas stations. This is called the Garage right now. This is a restaurant, but this is a former gas station with these all-metal panels. You can see they're kind of square, and they're white, and they're nice, bright, and white and pretty. That's right at Main and Wing. If you're ever in Northville, go take a look. Here's another example. This is a Bates Burger on Farmington at 5 in Livonia. This one has the all-metal panels both in and outside. And if you want to know what the enamel porcelain finish is, how they create it, and what it looks like, it's basically the same stuff that's on your washing machines and your stovetops. And it's by it's a sand and paint mixture that's put on a metal surface and it's baked at like about 500 degrees for 30 minutes. And it's a glass smooth finish, pass the panel around, and it lasts forever. That's the idea. It's supposed to last forever. Okay, so in 1947, with years of experience of building those kind of gas stations, Strandland went to the, what is it called here, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation of America, and asked for a loan for about $12 million, because he actually wanted to continue building the gas stations. But the government, and he needed some steel to be allocated, but the government said, well, we've got enough gas stations, how about building some homes? So that's what he started to plan, and that's what they started to build. And they built them, and this makes sense, in a former Curtiss Wright airplane factory in Columbus, Ohio. And why choose an airplane factory to make these all-metal homes? It kind of makes sense because you've got these huge hydraulic presses that were used to make the engine cowlings and the fuselages of these World War II era planes, which you can then convert to making these metal panels for the homes. Okay, so in 1947, the Lustron Corporation began building homes. They had planned initially in that first year to build 15,000 homes. That's a lot of homes. The next year they were planning on 30,000. The homes were in the factory, before they were shipped out, they were pre-wired and the wall sections were plumbed, and all the parts weighed about 25,000 pounds. They were loaded onto specialty trucks, and they were shipped to sites, and they cost about $9,500. So in 2016 cost, that was about $85,000. By June of 1950, they had only sold about 2,500, and the company went out of business soon after that. What happened? Okay, so it took forever for them to get to the building sites on these Lustron specialty built trucks. A crew could only deliver about one house on average a week, and then they'd have to go back to Columbus, Ohio and load up again. No Lustrons were built west of the Rockies, because getting these huge trucks with 25,000 pounds of metal over those primitive roads over the Rockies in the late 40s didn't work. So they were kind of limited to the Midwest and the East Coast. Once delivered to, you needed a specially trained crew. It almost took them about 3 weeks to set up each home. And while they'd go up quicker than most conventional builds, a crew could only build so many homes in a limited time. Plus, the factory had all these production delays initially. They really only started cranking out homes in 1948, and by that time, the GIs had pretty much figured out other homes to get to, even though in 1948, Lustron put an advertisement in Life magazine, and they got 300,000 people writing in for information on Lustrons, but they just couldn't meet that need. They just couldn't create these homes fast enough. And by, 1948 or so, they were in debt to the United States government to $25 million. Their debt was growing every day, and the government decided to pull the plug on their line of credit, and that's all she wrote. Okay, so what besides their mass production, and you can fit it all in one truckload, made the Lustron unique? It's kind of like what they were built with, or more to the point, not built with. So here's your typical home. What's your typical home built with? Lumber, aluminum, brick, mortar, drywall, particle board, tar paper, and gravel. Here's what the Lustron was made with. That's it. Now, there was some insulation in between the walls. There was asbestos all over the place. There was asbestos in the floor. There was asbestos in... I'm sorry? Yes. Look out for it. Don't buy a Lustron if you want to avoid that stuff. But this is what it was. This is steel. That's all it was. Check it. I mean, that steel doors, steel gables, steel framing, steel trusses, interior wall panels, aluminum window framing. I mean, everything. Steel kitchen storage. It was all made of steel.
Hi there, I'm John Heider. I've got a magnet and I've got a Lustron. Check it out. Kitchen cabinet, wall, Let's see, front door. See how this looks. Ooh, it sticks. And then we'll go out to the front porch. All metal surfaces.
So yeah, everything was all metal. Here's a few photos of the crews putting together the homes. Even though I said they're normally about three guys per build. Here we see 5 guys putting up a truss. No, truss, because those things weighed about 200 pounds. Here's a couple of guys putting the ceiling tiles on. As I've mentioned, that is the enamel porcelain coated roof tiles as well. So those have lasted quite a long time. Lustrons, they had these square panels both inside and they also had a 2-foot by 9-foot panel in some of the bedrooms in the living room, and those were attached to a steel frame. That's a steel frame by screws and bolts and clips. But one of the other innovative things that Lustron did was most of the square panels were connected kind of like an S shape. They were gripped together, and that's actually where the Lustron got most of its strength. It wasn't necessarily by being connected to these frames, but it was by being connected to each other and kind of creating a wonderful strength like that. All the Lustron's exterior panels, and in fact interior as well, they had to be assembled in a specific order and begin in a corner of the home. Don't ask me why, it just did. That was the way it was gone. The majority of the Lustrons were 1,000 square feet, and they had this basic layout, 2 bedrooms. There was one 3-bedroom model, but they only built about 3 of those. I'm sorry, not 3. 3% of those were 3-bedroom. Yeah. Lustrons were all as a single-level home. That's one of the keys. No basements, and there was no usable attic space. And they also had a radiant heat system, which means above you, there's a ductwork that goes back and forth, carries the hot air above you. None of the air comes down into the room. It just heats the panels above you, and it's supposed to radiate down into you. Sorry? Yes, supposed to. Well, let's just say, you'll see later how warm it can be. Okay, so what are the pros and cons of living in a Lustron? So, as I just mentioned, here's where your heat is in the winter, right? Up by the ceiling. Here, that's where it's not. Basically, I tell people, below your belly button, it is cold. In the winter, it gets cold in there, unless you want to burn up a lot of money, which I don't. Also, they don't have a central air conditioning system. So you have to get creative and slam in an air conditioner unit into the windows, or some Lustron owners have actually cut holes in the sides of their homes to put in huge units. They also do rust. Even though they're made with this porcelain enamel steel, the porcelain finish cracks, water gets below the surface and eats away at that metal. That's a photo of my exterior of my home. They have, as I mentioned before, they have neither basements nor attics. So you've got the above closet storage space, and that's about it. Also, I guess this is a con. Most realtors and buyers really don't know what to make of a steel home. As I'll tell you in a minute, there are 8 of them here in Ann Arbor, but it's like if you're a realtor, if you're a buyer, what do you make of them? I mean, the vast majority of homes are brick and mortar, wooden siding and all this stuff, and you've got a steel house. How do you sell that, or how do you value that? I don't know. This is actually a photograph of my neighborhood, and my home is down in the lower central part. And it's actually not the cheapest home, according to Zillow, in that neighborhood, but it's near the cheapest, which is maybe not a bad thing. Also, there's not a parts store. There's not a Lustron parts store because this stupid company went out of business, 68 years ago. So if something breaks, you've got to figure out how to repair it. This is my roof. One on the left, that's a roof tile that I've had to, take some rust off and paint. And on the right there, that is where my foundation, that's where the outer wall meets a foundation. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of a rusted hole there. That's where a chipmunk got in. I was wondering how a chipmunk got in my home. Yeah, they do. Okay, so here are the pros. Believe it or not, there are some pros to owning these homes. They have these funky, cool, practical aspects. Like this is a pass-through. So I'm in the kitchen there, and you can pass your dishes through into your living room. But isn't that neat? I think it's pretty cool. Okay, and as I mentioned, even though they don't have basements or attics, you have this above closet storage area where you can put your gear, your bags, your body if you want. And this is one of the Lustron sayings. A place for everything and everything in its place. Plus, they're easy to clean. This is actually me cleaning my ceiling. I'm not kidding. That's a mop. You just mop your ceiling. Who else does that? Anyone else mop their ceilings? Yeah. Here's how Lustron apparently portrayed how women in high heels can clean the exterior of their homes just with a hose. One cool aspect is the Lustrons came with something called a Thor, which is a combination dishwasher and clothes washing machine. But I don't know anyone with a Lustron that still has these, so apparently they've broken down. And you also, you don't have to paint the Lustron. You don't have to paint the interior walls if you don't want to. You don't have to paint the exterior walls unless they rust, which they can. Plus, another pro, you don't have to worry about termites. Fuck termites. Because termites go after wood, and my home has no wood. These Lustrons have no wood. Also, I swear to God, if you Google Lustron survives tornado, you get a number of images showing Lustron still standing after major tornadoes with other homes that have kind of been torn down. Now, this one did lose its roof, but it's still standing because you have 25,000 pounds of metal that is bolted to a concrete foundation. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd take that in a tornado. Also, okay. Yeah, come to my next tornado. Just come to my house. And here's, final pro is they're neat. I mean, you have it's a kind of hipster coolness to own an all-metal home. Sometimes I think my friends are more excited about showing my home to their friends, but, No. All right, so here's a quick fact about Ann Arbor's Lustron homes. We have 8 in the city, which is 2 more than Grand Rapids, so Grand Rapids can suck it. There are 2 on the north side of Pontiac Trail, which is where I am. There are, 3 in a row on Sunset. There are 3 Lustron homes in a row on Sunset. And there's one near Jackson Wagner, one near Miller and 7th, and one in 7th and Stadium. I don't know necessarily why Ann Arbor has more than any other town, but we do. Oh, I switched. Okay, so how did I come to own my Lustron? So I wasn't really looking for one. I didn't want to buy a steel house, but I was looking for a home in Ann Arbor, and it needed to be around $100,000. And this was 5 years ago, because I'm a cheap bastard. So my buddy Gary heard that I was looking for homes on the south side of town, and he said, you don't want to buy a home on the south side, you want to buy our steel home. All right, that's him, that's Gary Murphy. Okay, so in January 2013, I was introduced to this home. I toured it. It was a mess. It was kind of a mess. But Gary and his wife Chrissy had owned it for 20 years. They had had renters, the same renters in there for 20 years. And the structure was fine, which is true, but it needed a crap load of TLC. It really did. And the bargaining went like this. So I go, what do you want for it? Gary says, how about $110,000? And I say, sold. And this is Gary's... Pretty funny. I still have that. Okay, so I'll go through a few photos of my rehabilitation project on the Lustron, because it really was a piece of crap when I first got it. This is literally moving in day. Yeah, there was a chicken pen. The chickens left, but I got to take down the pen. The tiles in the utility room were coming off. That is asbestos glue. The ceiling was rusting, and there I am, kind of psycho. That's okay. And this is how the kitchen storage, this is how the cabinet looks. I don't know if you can tell, that's kind of rusted and the paint's faded. And this is how I took the sink cabinet from there to there. I repainted that section. This is a bay window. I went from that on the left to the right. This is the pass-through. It went from there to there. And God bless Rust-Oleum. I'm serious. Without that stuff, I would be screwed. I painted the gables. I painted the second year I was there. I was up on a ladder. I didn't kill myself. I painted the gables. I even changed the kitchen wall. The kitchen wall went from a light yellow to a white with a red kicker. The bookcase, repainted that. That went from rusty that to white that. This is how you hang. This is how you hang knives in your kitchen. Magnets. I'm serious. Magnets are great. And I've had to do a lot of work on the roof. I had to patch a small hole with JB Weld. This is how you hang artwork in a Lustron. You don't pound nails into your metal wall. You attach you super glue hooks to a magnet. That's what you do. And I even Pied Mondrian my bathroom. Bitches. And there I am mopping my wall. Here's a tour group that came in. I'm very proud of my mailbox, which is an IKEA bread box that I repurposed. Aren't I a genius? Yeah. And I even repainted the pass-through. So it's a crazy thing to own these metal homes. And I've met some people who've owned them, and most love them. And in fact, there's a dedicated Facebook group where if you ever say anything like you're thinking of repainting your exterior with anything other than, an approved paint, people will shame you online. Here's a quick shot of some of Ann Arbor's Lustrons. These are the 3 in a row. They're on Sunset. And I like this. Even in that same neighborhood, there's a faux Lustron. It's actually not a Lustron, but it's an all-metal house, or at least the exterior. But that doesn't count. That's not a Lustron. And that's the end. All right.
This program was recorded on July 19th, 2018 at Live, 102 South 1st Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan.